Welcome to the Genesis of the Doctor podcast, where we're taking a journey through the time and space of the history of Doctor Who. I'm Joy,
And I'm Tris.
and for today's episode, we're focusing on the first and second serials of Season 4, which are The Smugglers and The 10th Planet, and this is also our goodbye to the first Doctor as well.
Yep. Yep. It definitely felt like the end of a season, not just because of the regeneration, obviously, but like the presentation in the episodes also felt like it would have been fitting for the last two stories of a season.
Yeah. I guess to go in order, we should start with The Smugglers, and I have to say, I found it very boring.
Yeah. Yeah, it didn't help that there was a lot of implied action basically every episode, but because it's a loose cannon reconstruction, we only really have like the sound effects and the text to go off of for that, so it's very easy to lose focus and really lose exactly what's going on.
Yeah. It's hard to have a fight scene when you can't see it.
Yeah, it is, or it's hard to enjoy a fight scene rather.
Yeah. It was funny, though, how the only surviving clips were when people were getting murdered.
Which was rather funny, actually.
Apparently, it's when it was broadcast in Australia, they cut out all of those scenes. So,
uh,
funnily enough, those ended up being the only scenes that we had surviving because they
wow.
were just in an archive somewhere.
Yeah, that makes sense. Although I imagine that's kind of funny for Australian viewers. These characters just kind of randomly disappear.
Yeah. I mean, they've kind of done that before where it's just like implied this character dies off screen and stuff. So,
Yeah.
it makes sense. But
It was
yeah.
definitely a curious story, though. I know it dealt with the treasure of a pirate that we eventually meet in Doctor Who much later on, completely unrelated.
Yeah. Apparently,
But
the writer for Curse of Black Spot also was like asked in an interview, and he said just like I had no idea they had already used Captain Avery before. It's just totally coincidental.
that's pretty funny.
This episode was also weird because there was no music in it. Which
Yeah, I was thinking
you definitely
about that.
start to notice it.
I thought maybe they did like extra editing for the loose cannon reconstruction to like cut out music, but then I thought more about it. I'm like, no, that doesn't feel like it would make sense.
Yeah, they just didn't have any music in this for some reason. It's weird.
That might add to why it felt a bit boring. Then it was
I suppose
missing something.
it might have been that like it might have been like low budget because the Smugglers was actually the final one that they filmed with season 3, and then 10th Planet was the
Okay.
first of the next one. So it might have just been that like they were running out of budget, I guess, so they just
Yeah,
didn't
that
include
filming
music.
block. I see. That's interesting. I mean, yeah, I could definitely see that being the case. It definitely came across like it was fairly low budget, but then again, some of the set pieces or on location, depending on how you look at it, seems like they were actually done fairly well from what we could, see of them.
Yeah. And they did also. This is the first time they did location filming outside of London,
Right.
where I think it was Cornwall, which is where they went to. And
Yeah,
which
I
is
think
like
they even said
it's,
that.
it's like a few hours drive from London, so it's not super far,
Okay.
but it's farther than they've ever gone before.
Yeah.
And apparently, Anique Wills and Michael Craze, who are Polly and Ben, this was their favorite one to film just because they got to do location filming in Cornwall.
That's fair. They also got to do a lot in this because the Doctor goes missing for like half the story. So
Yeah,
there's
as
a
he
lot
does.
of yeah, as he does nowadays.
I guess
So there
we did get to see him though, so
yeah,
it's
we
a bit
did.
different.
We did. It's just a case of they were separated from him and had to fend for themselves in such a way that let them shine pretty quickly as companions, I would say, in terms of what they're willing to do, how they're willing to go about it.
Yeah, and I have to say, what I liked the most of this was just the dynamic between Ben and Polly.
Yeah.
Like they're such a great duo. Like I love
Mhm.
like their banter and everything.
Yeah. They work well together in a crisis.
Yeah. I also have a note here that Polly experiences gender dysphoria in this story.
Yeah.
Like, it's a bit confusing that they had people mistake her for a man because I don't like she's kind of like the most feminine companion we've had so far, so it doesn't really make much sense.
Especially since the start of 10th Planet says otherwise. It's a little weird.
Yeah. My assumption is maybe this was being written for Dodo, in which case it would make a bit more sense because she has like short hair and stuff.
Okay,
I
I can
don't know
see
if that's
that.
true, but that would have to be the assumption I would come up with. But I did find it funny how she's like, I wish people would stop calling me lad. I don't quite like it. I can relate to that.
Yeah, the unintended, the capturing the audience in an unintended way. Good old
Yep.
Doctor Who. No, I think a really big part of this whole story really is the paranoia factor of like who's a smuggler, anyone could be, and the lack of trust between basically every character in this story, and
Yeah.
how the Doctor and both companions go about it is actually pretty fascinating. But I wish we got a better look at all of it because I do think this story would be a lot better had it been surviving. Um,
Yeah.
just because I think a lot of what made the story more interesting is kind of lost in uh, the reconstructed media, unfortunately.
Yeah. I will say that apparently there are rumors that this might be one of the next animations that comes out.
Okay.
Because when somebody leaked that, the one that they made before Celestial Toymaker, which is Underwater Menace, when that one leaked,
Mm-hmm.
it was said they were working on Underwater Menace and the Smugglers. So
Okay.
it might be getting an animation soon, but it hasn't been announced yet.
Yeah. So basically, it'll be like 6 months after it's announced that it'll come out. So it's at least a year away, probably.
Yeah. I, I do find it weird though that like I kind of get why they did it, but you have a whole pirate story and you have like nothing on a ship. Like they very briefly go onto a ship, but you kind of expect like if they're doing a pirate story, you'd expect it to be like swashbuckling
Mm-hmm.
and like on a ship and stuff, and they don't do that.
Yeah, I think outside of putting the Doctor on the ship for like a couple scenes, I think what they really wanted to do was focus more on the treasure aspect and how low the pirates are willing to go for it, how low the smugglers are willing to go for it.
Yeah, I guess.
Because I think they were like every time we've had a ship in classic Doctor Who so far, it feels like they're in a rush to get off of it so that they don't have to write a story in such a confined space.
Yeah, I guess.
That's what it feels like, at least.
There is also a historic moment in this that we actually have a black character played by a black actor for the first
That's
time,
true.
and then we have a second one in the next story, which is
Mm-hmm.
quickly did that. It's kind of a shame he just kind of gets murdered very very quickly, but
Yeah, you know.
they're starting to have more people of color instead of blackface, so that's it's good to
Yeah.
see.
It is technically better, but the treatment isn't necessarily better. But
Yeah, and I will say
baby
that
steps, baby C.
apparently behind the scenes, William Hartnell wasn't very nice to the guy that was in 10th Planet. Anique Wills said he was very racist towards him, so that's very unfortunate.
That's not good, Mr. Hartnell. That's not good.
Yeah. Yeah, for the story, it's like it just felt like not really that much really happened, and it just kind of gets pretty boring going through like 4 episodes of just going back and forth trying to figure out what's happening. I
Yeah,
don't know.
especially since this was basically purely historical. There was no like alien interference or anything like that. It really didn't do that much in the time it had. Like this could have
Yeah,
been two episodes for a short serial, and then maybe made 10th Planet longer. But it definitely just felt like things were happening to for the sake of filling out time.
yeah. I feel like this might have been a good episode just to see like the physical performance of of like the actors, because like they're playing as
Mm-hmm.
pirates and stuff. It's probably like interesting to see like what they're doing, but obviously we don't
Right.
get to see that.
Yeah, unfortunate. Yeah,
Did
I
find
don't
it.
have anything else written for it though. Unfortunately,
Yeah,
it,
I
it,
only
it,
had
it didn't spark many thoughts for me.
I only had short notes here. I did also
Mm-hmm.
like the scene though where it's like, "What makes you think I like gentlemen?" That
That was actually
that
pretty
comes
funny.
across differently when in a modern perspective, I would say. What makes you think I like
A little
gentlemen? Well,
bit.
it's your dress. It's like so obvious that obviously you like gentlemen.
Yeah, it's the doctor saw that one from a mile away.
And then I don't know if you noticed, but the guy that plays Blake was the same actor as the villain from the Aztecs.
Oh, really?
He's the guy that works for the king. It's the same actor
Oh, that's
as that guy.
right. That's right. I didn't get enough good looks at him to the loose cannon reconstruction to really like have it stick,
Yeah,
but there was something about him that looked familiar. I just figured maybe he was just a bigger name at the time.
yeah. And then I just have a couple other behind the scenes notes that this is the
Mm-hmm.
second female director, Julia
Okay.
Smith. And then this is also the same writer, Brian Hales, as Celestial Toymaker. And
Oh, okay.
after this, he will go on to write very multiple Ice Warriors stories. So he's coming back in the future.
Good. Good.
And then kind of tying it into 10th Planet, between these two stories, they had their production break. So during which William Hartnell went back to Cornwall on vacation. Unfortunately, he spent most of that time in bars, so he was not actually
Oh
healthy enough. Like, his doctor told him not to go back to film the 10th Planet because he got, like, an infection while he was there. So,
man,
yeah,
he was not in good health like at all during the end of all of this, was he?
yeah, that's why he's not in episode 3, is because he literally collapsed. Like, he collapsed and had to text them and say, like, send a message to them and say, like, yeah, I can't do episode 3 because
Mm-hmm.
I'm not in good health.
Jeez. So they had to write that into the story in a way that made sense. Which,
Yeah.
yeah, we'll get to that.
Yeah, I guess we can just move on to the 10th Planet because we didn't have much to
Yeah.
say about Smugglers. I think this one was a lot better. Definitely a lot better than the Smugglers.
I actually really liked this story.
I think it's definitely not a regeneration special. Like, it
Mm-hmm.
definitely isn't like a celebration of the First Doctor in a way that you would expect a regeneration story to be in the modern perspective. But, like, the Cybermen are immediately very good, like, iconic characters.
Yeah, they really are. Like in a very different way than the Daleks too, which I actually really appreciated. Like
Yeah,
I specifically want to know. I love how the Cybermen are not in every scene. Like they are
yeah,
not. Uh, they're not oversaturating the entire episode. Like though they are the main threat going on, the main antagonist to the whole story, I would actually say, is the threat of war more than anything else.
yeah, it really is.
Like it is what the general is aiming to do, and in the face of all of this, it is what the Cybermen are trying to do, but it's also just the fact that everyone is kind of at odds with each other, and that it makes it really tense the whole time, and I think that's done really well.
Yeah. I like that, like, the Cybermen are the cliffhanger of this episode 1, which is definitely a good way to do it. It's the same thing they did with the Daleks. And then it is a little weird how it's like, that group of Cybermen gets defeated and then we don't get another group until, like, episode 4. But I think it definitely adds to, like, the feeling of how the Cybermen are and stuff, where they're not really there that much, but you still feel the threat of them and all that.
Yeah, I really appreciate the fact that they weren't there the whole time. I imagine that's because they only had like 3 suits,
Yeah,
but
and apparently they were terrible suits to work inside of. I think
they
some of
they
the
look
actors were
difficult to
like
move around
fainting
in.
and stuff on the set and too. So
Oh jeez.
Cybermen come back soon. They greatly redesign the costumes though, so that because I think it was like it's very hot to be inside of it was the main issue. So they
I
couldn't
really
really do much.
love I do really love the Mondasian Cybermen design, though, especially in modern Who when they came back. There's something just very creepy about the design of it that's very Frankenstein in its
Yeah,
design, or Frankenstein's monster, I should say. I really appreciate how it's done, and I understand like in the context of the '60s, it's more so limitations
yeah,
as to why they look the way they do, but also just trying to make robots that look like they were, humans turned into robots. And I think they did a really good job of like constantly having like shots on the face of the Cybermen to like make them feel creepy.
Yeah, I especially liked how like they were very creepy when you noticed that you could see their eyes. I felt
Yeah.
because like I think even in the modern Dacian Cybermen, I don't think you could see the eyes. Like we did
Mm-hmm.
see Bill's eyes, but that was a zoom in to go beyond the costume.
Yeah.
But like these definitely feel like they are humans that have been changed. You
Put
know,
inside. Yep. Yep.
you can definitely feel it here.
Mm.
It is funny how Mondas was piloted, which is the same thing that like the Daleks were trying to do with Earth as well.
Yeah.
That was
Well,
not
Mon-
not really super well established here, but it's kind of like similar to the idea of what the Daleks were doing in Dalek Invasion of
well,
Earth.
well, Mondes wasn't quite piloted. It's more so as that it. Well, what was the explanation they gave? It's that it's like the natural twin to the Earth, but it got sent away. But now that it needs energy from the Earth, it's naturally being drawn back into it. They made it sound more
Yeah,
like it was like a scientific, like a natural occurrence that they were just allowing to happen, rather than doing anything about it. But I do understand the idea. They probably had some level of influence on moving it.
yeah. And I didn't know Mondas was destroyed in its first story.
Yeah, same. I guess that's why it never really never really came up again until Modern Who, where it's a ship from Mondas. It's not the actual planet itself.
Yeah, and apparently, I think in like books and stuff, some books said that Mondas and Marinus are the same planet, and
Huh.
the Vord would go on to become the Cybermen. Although according to the 12th Doctor, they were actually separate planets, where Cybermen arose on both planets. So
Yeah.
it's
I mean
conflicting,
that makes sense.
conflicting
I
reports.
mean, the doctors even go on to say like Cybermen happen anywhere there's people.
Yeah,
Eventually, give them enough time. They're an inevitability, and I think
yeah.
that's part of what makes them even scarier.
Apparently, Kit Pedler, who's the scientific advisor, his idea was that he was hearing a bunch of stories about like people doing like I don't know what the word is, but like people getting like cybernetic implants and stuff, and
Yeah.
he just really liked that idea where he really wanted to run with it, just
Mm-hmm.
tell a story about like if you replace every single part of a person, are they a person anymore?
Ah, ship of Theseus.
Yep, basically.
No, yeah, I definitely think it's really interesting how the Cybermen started off here, and I really like how a good amount of the story is like, yes, the Cybermen are a threat, but the General was also like a big threat until the Cybermen took him out.
Yeah, he's definitely like
It's,
kind of like the main villain, I would say, to an extent.
yeah, and I
I mean,
think that makes the Cybermen even more interesting because they're not inherently evil what they're trying to do.
yeah,
Technically, it's out of survival, so to say.
and then they're willing to give all the people in the base life, but converted life, but they're not going
Yeah,
to
I
kill
mean,
them.
the same way any Cyberman is, dude, we are not trying to eliminate you. We're not trying to delete you. We're trying to upgrade you, kind of thing.
Yeah,
Nowadays, at least.
and the voice of the Cyberman is also very creepy. Like I love the way
Hmm.
that they did the voice on this.
I do really like it, though. I do think when they speak for long periods of time, it does get a little grating.
Yeah,
It gets to be a little much, but I do like it. I like that it's different than the Daleks and the other robotic enemies that we've had here in the classics so far.
yeah. I will say Cybermen are going to come back quite a bit over the Second Doctor's tenure, because
That's fair.
they retire the Daleks at the end of this season for
Mm-hmm.
like they have two stories in this season, and then they don't return until season 9.
Oh,
Whereas
wow, okay, so that's quite some time.
the Cybermen are basically the Daleks for the Second Doctor. But then I
I think
think
that's fine.
the person that takes over for the Third Doctor, I think he didn't like the Cybermen, so then they just don't have the Cybermen in the Third Doctor's era at all, I think.
Well, it would be hard to do it in the Third Doctor's era, considering he's pretty much on Earth the whole time.
Yeah. But then, like, the Third Doctor, I think, is the only Doctor who has never met a Cyberman on TV. Whereas
I'm sure they
every
fixed
single
that
other
in
one has.
audio. Yeah.
Yeah, I think he has an audio story with it.
Mm. or a book or something. Yeah,
Yeah.
I
William
think
Hartnell
one.
does a good
Oh,
job in
yeah,
this as well, I think.
yeah, that's what I wanted to bring up. I wanted to say, even though he's out of commission for a whole episode, I think he actually does a really good job in this story. Kind of trying to hold things together, trying to not quite keep everyone in line, but kind of get everyone to a certain level of understanding with him, including the newest companions.
Yeah. I found that the early scene where the general says like he doesn't like the doctor's face and Doc's just like so offended by that. I love that scene. You just still see like the silly nature of how the doctor reacts to people, and he's just like,
Yeah.
I don't like it.
It's very huffy.
And then there's that little quick speech that like people have quoted and stuff where he's like, "Have you no emotions?" I
Yeah.
forgot what the
The
exact
thing that
line
they
is.
the whole thing that they even used for Twice Upon a Time for Capaldi's regeneration special, where they kind of took that scene and they transformed it into the new actors playing the
Yeah,
characters in this story.
yeah, he does a good
No,
job,
that
even
is
if
iconic.
he's just out of commission for an episode and not in
Hmm.
good health when he's doing it.
Yeah, I think it works as a solid farewell to him. Not as like necessarily a good regeneration story, but the fact that uh, he does a good job in this episode, in this story, that it works well for him. It's not like he's ending on a very bad note.
Yeah, it is a bit unfortunate though that like he doesn't actually do anything in this
Mm-hmm.
story. Apparently, later stories have kind of established that like he already knew about this story. Like he knew about this historical moment ahead of time, so he technically couldn't interrupt like what happened
Right.
because for him it's already established history and he doesn't want to mess with
Yeah.
established history. But it's kind of sad that in his last story he's just kind of talking to people and not doing
Mm-hmm.
anything.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, unfortunately, that's due to the actual limitations with William Hartnell and his health. But
Yeah.
I do think, on that hand, though, it gave the new companions a chance to shine pretty well because Ben and Polly are actually like really in their element. They already feel like pretty good companions.
Yeah, they do. I definitely like them already.
Mm-hmm. I think they have a really good motivation with between the two of them, like of like trying to help each other and the Doctor, and really good trust. Considering how long we've had the companions being distrusting to William Hartnell's Doctor, it's actually quite nice at how trusting these two are and how strong they are at first. The two of them
Yeah.
have their own strengths that they play to constantly. Even if in Ben's case it's a, well, he's in the Navy, so he knows his way around weapons and fighting, and even still, he manages to feel very different than the other male companions we've had thus far because of it.
Yeah, definitely for sure. He has very quick thinking at times too. With like, he
Yeah.
goes into the projection room and he immediately figures out a way to get out of there.
Mm-hmm.
Then, unfortunately, he has to kill a Cyberman, and he doesn't like that.
And he's upset about it. That's a
Yeah.
big thing, though.
Meanwhile, like all the other ones, when they fight Daleks, they'll just happily kill them. Kill all the Daleks, you
It's the
fine. Don't worry
Daleks.
about it.
It's the Daleks. People got to feel differently about that.
Yeah.
No, but I think Ben makes her a pretty strong companion with how much he's done, and it feels very different than the other ones that we've had up to this point, than Ian and Steven, and the way he goes about it. It's never a case of him taking full charge. It's very much like a following orders or acting in everyone else's best interest, and he's not quite as bumbling either.
Yeah. It's also just there's a very good supporting cast in this story. Like
Yes.
I loved like every character in it. Like they were all so
Mm-hmm.
great. Even
Like
just
it, really strong.
the guy that dies in the first episode, Tito, where he's like sitting in his bunk and you see like pictures of women on the side, and then he hears, oh, there's people outside. It's like, I don't care. And then there's a woman outside. A woman. And then he
Yeah,
rushes
that
over.
was actually really funny.
Very good. And then like
It was good comedy.
yeah, and then like the general and Dr. Barclay, they were very good characters. I feel.
Yeah, I thought those two were actually like really well done. Barclay was like really great at how he saw how Ben and Polly wanted to go about it, and they kind of won him over fairly quickly. But he actively kept working alongside them to, you know, try to save the day, so to say.
Yeah.
Um, and then the general's descent into madness was also just like really really well done. I do also have it
Yeah.
noted that the general now kind of looks like at least a little bit. I think he looks like Harrison Ford a little bit.
Yeah, he kind of does. He looked like kind of vaguely familiar to me. Yeah, I
I
guess
don't know what I would
kind
know
of
him
vaguely like
from,
Harrison Ford.
but mm-hmm.
Apparently, he has worked with William Hartnell on a movie before, but I don't think I've seen. It was like a movie from like 10 years before this or something. And then
Yeah, I don't know.
Patrick Troughton had like a cameo role in that movie too, which is kind of funny. Same thing happened again.
Yeah,
Patrick Troughton's in
basically.
this thing again for 10 seconds. Yeah, there's also very good cliffhangers. I feel like you have the Cybermen in the first one. The second one's like maybe the weaker one, where it's just like, my son's up there and stuff, and then the third one where you have
Yeah,
like the countdown on the screen and everything. Like,
yeah.
it's got very good cliffhangers here.
Yeah, the countdown cliffhanger was very well done. I think the General's son, I wasn't as concerned about that one because we're not made to really like the General the entire time. It's
Yeah,
not like that was a turning point for him of, oh, he's working with them, but now he's going against them because his son is involved. It's more like that was what started his descent into sort of a power hungry madness.
yeah. I also think his plan was probably just like he wanted to blow up the other planet to save his son, who was halfway between the two planets. But wouldn't that put his life in more danger?
Yeah, yeah. It
Because he
would
would be
put his
closer to the
future.
blast and stuff. So,
Well,
um,
the plan was to blast it when he was on the other side of the orbit. So he was
yeah,
been like he would have been on the complete opposite side. So he would have been spared supposedly, but
yeah, I
he
guess.
still would have had to deal with all the repercussions.
I also just kind of find it funny how like this establishes that in the mid '80s, the Earth had like like a space program, which
Yeah,
just kind of isn't the case in future Doctor Who.
it's a different timeline,
Yeah, I guess. Although you could also
especially
argue that
since
like maybe it's like tied to unit, so it's a secret unit thing that they're doing.
that's
I
true.
don't know.
But especially since like we had Geneva involved and we had like the Cybermen actually invading different parts of the world, though we didn't actively see them outside of Geneva. It's hard to say how much of Earth actually remembers the Cybermen
Yeah.
in that case.
Apparently, like in the '80s, like in the Fifth Doctor era, they actually have a story that like directly ties to this, because it's like
Okay.
I think it's like in 1985 they do one where like the Cybermen try to alter history so that this doesn't happen because this is 1986, something like that.
Right.
We'll get to that eventually, but yeah,
Eventually.
they kind of deal with it later on.
Okay. Well, that's good to know.
And then this is also our first base under siege story, which is kind of a thing that's going to happen a lot in the Second Doctor era as well. Which
That's okay.
I assume that's probably why they have done more animations for the Second Doctor, because it's probably a lot easier to do a base under siege story where, simple environments and stuff.
Yeah. I actually want to make a note about that too. The animation for this last one was actually pretty good. I know it was
Yeah,
like the same kind of animation as like
Reign of Terror.
yes, thank you, Reign of Terror, the
Yeah,
French Revolution story. But there was something about this one that just looked like it was animated way better.
yeah. This was done by the same team that did that, and Reign of Terror was their first one. This is their second one.
Okay.
So they definitely improved the art style a bit and had them moving a bit more, which definitely helped.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
No, I definitely think it worked better this time.
yeah, and there was like a lot of weird close-up shots, I believe, in Reign of Terror, which they definitely didn't do here as much. So it
Oh
definitely
god,
works
it
better.
was almost funny how many times they did it before.
Yeah, you can definitely tell that they improved with their animation style here, though.
Oh yeah. Definitely. I think what's special about it too is the fact that this entire story. Well, did they animate the entire thing or only just this
No,
last?
they only did the fourth
Okay.
episode.
Yeah. Okay. So they also had like a solid foundation to work on. Basically, they
Yeah.
had all 3 episodes before to work with. So it's not like it's not like Reign of Terror where they had to reanimate like half the entire thing.
Yeah. I know
Yeah.
like
Okay.
the first few Doctor Who animations just took like the partial stories and just animated the missing ones. And then
Right.
more recently they do like the whole thing even if they have an episode like they did with Galaxy 4 and also Celestial Toymaker.
Mm-hmm. You know, I've been thinking on this as we've been talking about it. I know I think I figured out what it is I really like about the 10th Planet as a story, and I think it's that it really feels like a story that if you like never watched Doctor Who, like if this was your first Doctor Who story, it's a pretty solid one. It stands on its own very well, in the
Yeah.
same ways that like the Dalek stories have, which then makes me wonder. I would have loved to see if this was a Peter Cushing movie because I think this actually would have been really cool.
Yeah, probably would have been a very good one. Probably would have made him a bit more involved in the story had they done that,
Yeah.
I assume.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I guess they just lost interest in doing Doctor Who movies after those first two.
It's a shame because I think one based off this story actually might have done pretty well.
I guess it's also just that, like, you know, the Dalek movies existed because of Terry Nation, and then this is
Right.
done by people that are, like, permanently employed at the BBC, so it would have been way more
Mm-hmm.
complicated to do that.
Yeah. No, that's completely fair.
Because this one was done by Kit Pedler and Jerry Davis, who's the current script editor, co-wrote this one.
Mm-hmm.
Because Kit Pedler is not a TV writer, so when you have like plot related stuff, he's not really involved with any of that. So he always has a
Mm-hmm.
co-writer.
Ah, okay, that makes sense.
Because basically what they did was like Jerry Davis did like a basic outline, and then Kit Pedler came in and put like the scientific stuff into it, and then
Mm-hmm.
that's how they did the writing.
Okay, I see. I see.
But yeah, this is a very good story and a very good introduction to the Cybermen, I feel.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I think we went over my only real thing that I felt confused about, which was literally just Mondas already getting destroyed.
Yeah.
It just felt kind of not sudden because they've been building up that that was going to happen, but it felt kind of surprising that that was the overall outcome.
You also have to question how did it, like, why did it blow up when this is what they were trying to do? Like, did they not
Yeah.
realize that they were getting too much energy? I know that, like, I was reading it on TARDIS Wiki, and they were kind of suggesting that, like, part of the Doctor's life force was getting sucked up. Maybe that's what made the planet blow up. Is that, like, it was absorbing a Time Lord's life force, and maybe that's too much for a planet? But then also
Huh.
just, like,
Which I mean,
nothing was happening to the Earth either. Like,
no,
they don't
nothing.
establish
Not
what it means that it's losing its power.
Yeah, they didn't really do anything to show the effects of what was happening on the Earth, or if it was anything like reversible or not.
Yeah.
And they also didn't really explain the Doctor either. Like they did note, like, oh, maybe it was some sort of like outside attack on him, is why he felt unwell and fainted. But then they didn't go any further into that.
Yeah. Because, I mean, that wasn't the plan originally, right? Is that he would have been
Right.
fine for episode 3, so they didn't really build into that. Apparently, the novelization of this didn't cut out the third Doctor from what was episode 3, so, like, the original idea of this episode was, like, it does survive in the novel.
Oh, okay. I wonder how drastically different it is, or if it's even drastically different.
Yeah. And then obviously at the end we have our regeneration, and I like the minutes leading up to it I felt were really well done on William Hartnell's part, whereas you can kind of feel that like something is seriously wrong with the Doctor when they get
Yeah.
him out of the ship, because he's not acting like himself in that scene, and it really works well
Yeah.
for him.
Yep, and it feels like a farewell too, like it really does.
Obviously we know now that on his walk over to his TARDIS he actually found a different TARDIS, and
Yep.
he was acting kind of more like himself, I guess, but also not really when he was there. It's complicated, but
It's complicated.
yeah, I think he did a good job there. I kind of wish this episode was surviving so we could see him actually doing it. as well.
Yeah, I do kind of wish they just had a bit more of an explanation for why he's regenerating.
Yeah,
Because it really does just come across like, oh, with his old age. And I think that's a little too close to simply William Hartnell's getting too old for the role, so we're going to replace him. It's a little too close to the actual thing that I wish they did something like it was just, I don't know, something the Cybermen did, you know?
yeah. I mean, I think it's also that like they don't really establish how regeneration works really until like the third Doctor's regenerating into the fourth.
Yeah.
Because like
It's not until far later.
even the second Doctor, it's like the Time Lords force it on him, so it's not really established that it's like you die and then you regenerate thing until
Right.
significantly later.
Yeah, really.
So
They
like
probably at some point figure out, oh, maybe we should like figure out how this works a little bit more before we keep doing it.
yeah, because even in this one, it's like he's like acts like he has to get to the TARDIS and then the TARDIS activates to make him regenerate, and so it's like very complicated. Like they clearly didn't really fully have the plan of like how it works exactly, and they just kind of pushed it in there last minute. But then
Yeah.
it worked, and it kept Doctor Who alive for 60 years. So
That's true. It did. It's a cool idea, and I'm glad it, eventually develops into something. But I do kind of just wish the initial foundation of regeneration had a little bit more going for it.
yeah, for sure. Apparently, the original plan for the regeneration would have just been that when the Doctor fell, his face would be covered by a cloak, and then next episode, Patrick Troughton would remove the cloak. But then, I don't know exactly what she did for Doctor Who, but her name is Shirley Coward. She had the idea of using like, I think it was like something that malfunctioned that would make a recording fade to white and then come back into picture and stuff. She had the idea of like using that technology to make it so that William Hartnell's face would fade into Patrick Troughton's. And then
That's pretty cool.
she wasn't credited with the idea in the episode anywhere. So
Damn.
you
Damn.
gotta mention it there.
That's unfortunate.
Yeah. But yeah, that's I liked the 10th Planet, didn't like the Smugglers.
Yeah.
I'm excited to see
Yeah.
what we're gonna
That's exactly
have.
what I'm at.
I'm excited to see the second Doctor though. See what
Yeah.
he's like.
Yeah,
I guess
absolutely.
I guess if that's all your thoughts on the 10th Planet, we can just move on to like saying goodbye to the first Doctor.
Yeah, let's do it.
So yeah, that's the end of the first Doctor. I have a couple notes here that like Patrick Troughton originally wasn't really sold on the idea of taking on the role, but it was his kids were big fans of the show, and that's basically what convinced him to take over. Also, funnily enough, some of his kids you might recognize because in the 10th Doctor episode Midnight, the guy that plays the professor in that episode is one of Patrick Troughton's sons.
Oh,
I didn't
wow,
know that
okay.
until semi-recently. That guy also appears in Patrick Troughton's final episode. His son, that same son, is also in that episode as a different character.
Huh.
And then apparently, I think they had this in Adventure in Time and Space, but William Hartnell thought that Patrick Troughton was the only person that could replace him. I think they've kind of had that in that biopic, but he was like, yeah. He really liked Patrick Troughton, and it was like, yeah, I guess if you're going to replace me, Patrick Troughton's a good choice.
Yeah, the way they depicted that in An Adventure in Time and Space felt more like he was kind of giving him advice and being nice to him in the situation. They didn't really
Yeah.
have anything in there that would make you realize that he firmly believed that.
Yeah.
Because he presents it like, oh, there's no other man in television that could possibly take on the role other than you. He hams it up a little bit to make it sound like, oh, he practically gave him the idea.
Yeah. I think that conversation that like there's no other man in Britain that could replace him was actually like part of the conversation he had with the producer when he was told like we want to recast the role and stuff.
Okay.
I think maybe they told him like a couple people they were thinking of, and he suggested Patrick Troughton and said like, yeah. When they
Yeah.
said Patrick Troughton, he was like, yep, That would be the one I would recommend. But yeah, they had that conversation while they were filming The Smugglers, because that was when they were given permission to recast it. And then that conversation ended with
Okay.
him agreeing to move on.
I
But
see. I see.
I really liked the first Doctor. I didn't really think I would like him as much as I did, because
Yeah.
the way people talk about him is kind of that, like, he's like this grumpy grandfather type, and he really is not at all. Like, he is in the first,
Only at first.
in like the first, like, 3 or 4 serials, I would say he is that. But then he very quickly changes into a very different person.
Yeah.
And then
He
also,
changes pretty quick.
I don't think Twice Upon a Time gives you a good first impression of the first Doctor either. I gotta say.
Twice Upon a Time definitely makes you remember that it's dated to the 60s.
Yeah, like he does have weird lines like he does in that story, but it's like one weird line every 5 episodes instead of 7 weird lines in 10 minutes. You know?
Yeah, yeah. Well, the structure's different.
Yeah.
No, I definitely really liked him. I don't know. It's hard to say where he would be in the rankings for me. I think he'd still be fairly low, but that's not out of disliking him. That's more so just because of how much I like all the others.
Yeah.
But the fact that, because I really was expecting to be like mixed on him or not like him that much, but I was actually like really pleasantly surprised, and I enjoyed his role in a lot of the stories. Though I do think I found some of the companions to be stronger in a lot of this era.
Yeah.
Even like being like the main highlight to a lot of it, like Steven, I think, was really good, for example.
Yeah. I think the biggest issue with First Doctor is just kind of that, like, he's not in the stories sometimes. And like
Yeah,
that's his biggest issue, is that, William Hartnell, his health was deteriorating towards the end there, so he just kind of
yeah,
wasn't in a lot. And I think that when he is there, though, I think he's very, very good. It's just that he's not there that much.
he has some very good speeches throughout his
Yeah.
tenure. He had some really good speeches.
And like even recently, I think the War Machines, that's a very good presentation of the First Doctor in that story.
Yeah, War Machines was like, he was really really good in that one. I know we taught that one. We talked a lot about that one last time.
Yeah. Obviously, William Hartnell, behind the scenes, wasn't the best kind of person, but in
Yeah,
front of the camera, he definitely put on a very iconic performance. And obviously, Doctor Who wouldn't have survived if he didn't do a very good job as the First Doctor. Because you don't get to
yeah,
15 of them without having a good first one.
yeah. It's true.
I did write down, like, what I think my updated Doctor rankings would be. It's kind of difficult to place a First Doctor, because I feel like yeah, I could put him like anywhere in the middle, really. But
Right.
just for what I wrote down here, in episode 0, I said I think my ranking at that point was 13, then 9, then 14, then 10, then 12, then 11. There
Right.
multiple changes to be made there. I think honestly, 9 and 13 are basically tied for first. Just to
Okay.
say that, and then so I'd say 9 and 13 are first, and then I'd put the 14th Doctor. Then I'd put the first, I think, but it changes a bit. Then I would put 12.
Yeah.
Then I would put 12 after him.
Okay.
Like I did a rewatch of the 12th Doctor, and I like him more than the 10th Doctor now. Although I'm now starting a 10th
Nice.
Doctor rewatch, so we'll see how that works out.
That's
Then I would
fair.
put 15 because I really like Shudigatwa's portrayal of 15, but the story hasn't really done anything for me, and like
Right.
the companion dynamic is a very important thing for me personally in liking a Doctor, and yeah, it just doesn't do anything for me yet.
Yeah.
Then I would say 10, and then 11. Whereas,
Okay.
and in episode 0, I said I didn't like the 11th Doctor. I think now I'm more neutral on him. So it's like,
Okay.
the bottom of it is neutral, and then I like them more and more as you go up.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, he's like right in the middle there, basically, the First Doctor, for me.
Okay. I mean, I think that's completely fair, and I think that's actually a pretty good impression.
Yeah,
Yeah, like I said, I have no idea where I would rank him.
yeah. It's complicated because it's like I really like him when he's there. It's just the issue is that he's not there, and then you have to have the companions picking up the slack a lot.
Yep.
It's kind of an issue for his era, but it's an understandable issue, obviously, because it was his
Yeah.
health that was the problem. Yeah, I like the whimsical grandfather type that he has there.
And he has a lot of whimsy, which I think is very important. He really does have a lot of whimsy.
I hope that at some point we get to have David Bradley playing a more whimsical take on the First Doctor,
Oh, I
because
would love that.
like I understand that when they've brought him back so far, like they're kind of hyping up that like this is the First Doctor and it's a big deal to have the First Doctor here, but I would really like to see him like try to play into the whimsical side of the First Doctor more, because
Hmm.
he hasn't really done that yet, at least
Maybe
on the show.
even get, maybe even get the opportunity to make the role his own a little bit too. Not necessarily to replace William Hartnell's First Doctor, but as if we're continuing the character, let's give him his own, quirks to it, or let him have his own quirks to it.
Yeah,
His portrayal.
I mean I know he did Big Finish for a while there, so there might be
Hmm.
some good stuff in there that I haven't seen. I haven't listened to his Big Finish stuff yet, though.
Right.
Although apparently they recast him as well in Big Finish,
Oh.
where when they changed it so that in the First Doctor stories it's him with Dodo, they also got a new First Doctor because they wanted someone that sounds more like William Hartnell. Because
Okay, that's fair.
obviously David Bradley was cast because he had the look, not because he had the voice. So
Right.
they decided to change him. So it's I forget what his name is, but yeah, he's been voicing the First Doctor for a couple years now. The new guy.
Hmm. Okay, I see.
I listened to a couple of those new ones, and I don't think they really make Dodo a good character, but they make her a better character. It's just that, they're starting so low that improving her is it's going to take a while to make her good.
Any improvement is improvement because the bar is so low for her, unfortunately.
Yeah, and their most recent one had the Doctor and Dodo meet up with Vicky, but like Vicky like 50 years after they left her behind, which is an
Right, I
interesting
remember
take.
you mentioning that.
And then apparently the one that's coming out this January is doing the same thing, but with Steven. So
Huh,
it's
okay.
interesting. Kind of want to listen to that one when it comes out.
Yeah, I'm definitely curious about that now.
Yeah, I really liked the First Doctor. And I'm interested to see how the Second Doctor changes things.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's well, I'm hoping from the get-go it really feels like the start of a new era
Yeah,
where he gets to make his stance as the Doctor. Like any Doctor's first few episodes, I think it's important that they get to feel established early on, even if what they're establishing is, like let's say like Matt Smith and Peter Capaldi's very first episodes, the whole thing is like not quite knowing who they are yet and kind of getting a good feel for that. Um, I hope we kind of see that with the second Doctor, where right away um, we feel the differences, and I hope it's not easing out of a William Hartnell kind of performance and into his own. I hope he's automatically right away his own. Oh, this man's different kind of thing.
yeah. I know that originally the idea was that he was going to be playing just like a younger version of the First Doctor, but I think that they decided to move away
Mm.
from that idea before they even had him in any episodes,
Mm.
and just had him be like his own person instead.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not sure exactly how they handle it right off the bat, but I guess we'll see that next time.
Yeah. I'm also looking forward to seeing how Ben and Polly react to the Doctor changing.
Yeah, it'll definitely be interesting to see how they deal with it. And then we do also have,
Mm-hmm.
not in the first story, but the second story, we will also get to meet Jamie. So we'll have another person there.
Yeah. I keep forgetting Jamie's like really early on and then stays the entire duration.
Yep.
That'll be fun.
I will let you know that from what I've heard, apparently Jamie and the Second Doctor can kind of be interpreted as something romantic going on between them.
Yeah.
I've heard that,
I
and I'm kind of interested to see what that's like.
I know when I went to Long Island Who a few months ago, I went to Frasier's panel, the panel for the actor who plays Jamie, and I know he mentions like every time he does a convention that gets asked about, and it's a well, leave it up to you all to interpret, but I'm just gonna say Jamie doesn't exactly come across as the straightest man. Like coming directly from the actor is really funny.
Yeah, I know I've heard that, like, back in the day, they were, like, the original thing was that they were told that people were upset that, like, the Doctor had female companions clinging to him all the time. So then they just said, okay, Jamie, do it instead. And then I have also heard that Patrick Troughton and Fraser Hines also heard that people were complaining that their characters seemed gay for each other, and then they're just like, well, we're just gonna really lean into it then, just to mess with them.
Because they're having fun with it.
Yeah. So I'm fascinated to see like how gay they feel.
Yeah, it should be a good time.
But I guess before we end it, we should also probably just say like, what were your like favorite First Doctor stories? Just like a couple
Ooh,
of them.
man.
Like if somebody came up to you and asked like, what like, give me like a few First Doctor stories to watch just to understand like the era, which ones would you suggest?
I think Dalek Invasion of Earth and War Machines are like two like very like quick thought top of the list for me.
Yeah.
Because I think they both really define the Doctor well and the era well.
Yeah, I definitely say that those are probably two good choices. I would also say like the first Dalek story as well is a very good choice.
Yeah.
Like I wouldn't really want to suggest people watch like all of the Dalek stories, so just kind of pick one of the first two.
Right.
They're both very good. I think for historicals, I would say like the Aztecs is very good as well, and the Romans. And we liked the Gunfighters, but apparently that's a very uncommon opinion.
I still think the Gunfighters is actually kind of fantastic. So
Yeah.
I don't know if I would recommend it to people, but I think it was a really good fun story.
Yeah. And then Keys of Marinus is another good one.
Yeah.
It really shows like how much they can get from like a tiny budget, you know, because they have so many different unique locations and everything in that story, and like they all feel fleshed out locations for the most part.
They really do.
Really, I would say like any story from season 1 is a good one to choose though, as well.
For the most part, yeah.
Maybe not Reign of Terror, but other than that, like the rest of the first season is very good.
I think Marco Polo might be a bit of a hard sell as well.
Yeah, especially because it's missing and everything.
Yeah. I will say, because I've tried getting my husband to watch some of the classics with us. He could not get through an Unearthly Child. He could not get through the 10-minute scene of Make Fire.
Yeah.
But then went on to enjoy the Daleks and Keys of Marinus and all that. So it definitely seemed like a case of the first serial maybe not also be the best, but once it kind of gets its footing, it's pretty good.
Yeah. And I guess the Daleks also has the issue of a whole episode dedicated to trying to cross a chasm.
Yeah.
So there's that issue there too, where the pacing is not really the best.
Pacing's definitely been an issue throughout Hartnell's tenure here at times, including pacing around the fact that he's just straight up gone for some entire episodes.
Yeah.
But he's had some really good ones.
I also really liked I'm blanking on the name now, but the Ood-like characters. Sensorites. The Sensorites story. I really like that one too.
Yes, the Sensorites. Yeah. No, that was actually a pretty good one.
Yeah. There's a lot of good stories here.
There are, and that says a lot. It really does.
You can tell that there was so much passion behind a lot of these stories. I think season 2 was a bit messy at times, largely just because like they were thinking like, well, the Daleks worked really well, so we need to do another Dalek thing, and then it didn't really land. Like they couldn't come up
Well,
with a second thing that could rival the Daleks. But then now they have with the Cybermen.
yeah,
So they
and
eventually
I
got there.
mean, at least it's not. At least it's not season 3 though.
Yeah. Season 3 was rough.
It really was rough. Like even
So
we even point out a couple times where even the Doctor felt a little out of character at times. So it struggled.
yeah. Although I will say, apparently, Dalek's Master Plan is a widely beloved story, and I don't
I
fully
don't
get
get it.
it.
I don't
Like
get
I
it.
don't think it's bad. I just think it's too long, and it doesn't do enough with the fact that it's 12 episodes. It's
Yeah.
like it just undercooks a lot of the ideas that they have there.
100%.
But yeah, I guess for next time we will be starting the second Doctor. So now is a good time for people to start watching along with us.
Yeah,
So
it's true.
if you would like to join us on our adventure, we do have a Patreon where for just $1 a month you can get into our Discord where we'll encourage discussions between episodes about what we're watching. And you can also have early access to stories if you want to. And then if you want to like join us while we're recording, it's just $5 a month, and we'll have a live text chat while we're recording, and you can tell us that the Smugglers was actually very good if you want to, and then we can talk about your thoughts on it. But yeah, for next episode, the plan is to watch The Power of the Daleks. I wrote here that it's 4 episodes. I think it's actually 6 episodes, but
Okay.
that one's fully animated. It is on Tubi TV or BritBox or BBC iPlayer, wherever you get your classic Who stuff. And then there's The Highlanders is the second one, which is 4 episodes long. Unfortunately, that one's entirely missing. And right now, it might be a bit difficult to find that just because archive.org is down, but hopefully by the time this is going up, archive.org is back, so it will be easier to find that.
Let's hope. Let's hope.
But yeah, I also noticed that for some reason, Loose Cannon Reconstructions they have a Daily Motion account, but for some reason, The Highlanders isn't there. So I don't know what
Wow.
happened with it there. So yeah,
It's gonna end up being the hardest serial for us to watch, hardest to find.
yep. But yeah, so for next time, just make sure you watch Power of the Daleks and The Highlanders. Although should
If
be
you're able
noted
to.
that if we don't find a way to watch Highlanders, then it might just get pushed back for the next episode. Just
Yeah.
possible. We'll see. But watch those before the next episode. You can find Power of the Daleks on BBC iPlayer or Tubi TV, and then The Highlanders is a loose cannon reconstruction. If you support us on Patreon for just $1 a month, you can gain access to our Discord, as well as early access to episodes. I have been Joy. You can find me on social media at Joy Content,
And I've been Triss. You can find me on social media at ToonTriss.
and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.